Hi guys, Alan TDi here from TDi Media. I've been delving into our archives and came up with this classic interview from 2012 with a then 14-year-old George Russell, the new Williams F1 driver in 2019. It features George, his brother Benji, the 2007 world champion in Rotax Max, and George's mum Alison. Looking back on this 7 years later and knowing what we know now, what was said then has some amazing context. My colleague Jake Sanson did all three interviews.
Back-to-back European champion, that hasn't happened very often. I mean, how difficult was it?
It was very difficult. It was a two-race meeting over 2 rounds, so we had to get as good as results as we could, which was very vital, and we did. We had the first race we won, but then we were very unfortunate. In the race 2 we got hit off on the first corner of the first lap, which meant we couldn't score any points. We went to PFI in England, where we did very well. We won both of the finals, which means after one dropped round, we scored maximum points and led us to win the European Championships for the second time.
But how much of a relief is it to know that you can have a bad moment like that and it still doesn't affect things too much?
Yeah, it is. For sure, I was still worried about having one. That was going to have to be my dropped round, so I had to do well in both of my results. But if you had 2 good results at the first round, you could go into the second round and only get 1 good result, and you've got it in the bag almost.
Now, obviously, you're a double European champion, but your brother Ben, well, he's a world champion. And when that happened, about 5 seasons ago, you must have been, what, 9 years old, roughly?
Yeah, I was 9, yeah.
So, I mean, how much of an inspiration was his success to your own motivation to better him?
Yeah, it was a big inspiration. I always wanted to better him, as obviously he's my big brother, and you always want to. It's a big competitive between both of us. So yes, I want to do as well as him, if not better.
Benji, you're a world champion in your own right, but now your brother is making his own stamp on the world of kart racing at this level, and he's got a lot of success himself. I mean, how big an achievement is that to you personally, watching your brother come through?
Obviously I'm really proud of George. I think he's got everything that it takes to make it in karting and obviously in the world of motorsport. You watch him and he always does enough to win the races, and I think he's always got an extra gear or two to, if he ever does become challenged, he can up his game and do the business, and he's got that hunger and desire to do what it takes to win everything that he does.
Now, he's got his own designs as to where he wants to go in terms of motor racing, but you're quite privileged in that you get to see what he's like in his demeanour and his attitude at close hand, and you've been in a top position of motorsport to know what it takes. How far do you think he can go?
Well, he's got the ability and the determination to go all the way, but obviously you need a lot of, you need the right break at the right time, you need to know the right people, and obviously he's trying to do all the networking now, so it's going to make his life a lot easier along the way. So, at the moment he's got the ability to get to Formula 1, obviously that's a long way to go, but, only time will tell.
Now, we're obviously at the highest level of karting in this country. It really is, make or break in terms of the start of your career. Formula 1 teams are taking notice of drivers with your skill and your ability. I mean, what's the real amount of support that you're going to have to get to move yourself forward?
Well, at the moment, we can afford to pay for us in karting, but when we move to the next step up into cars, we have to try and look for some sponsorship and look for an F1 team to try and see us and try and support us, and hopefully all the way to Formula 1.
And that is kind of the pattern that it's starting to emerge now. A lot of big teams, like the Williams family, watch this sport with a lot of interest. Red Bull are now involved. Sahara have their own Force India Academy involved. I mean, how big a difference would it make to you if a Formula 1 team called you tomorrow and said, yep, we'll give you the support you need?
Yeah, definitely a lot bigger difference, and then you've got a lot bigger chance of getting all the way, and they will hopefully support you all the way, spend money with you, and get to where you want to be.
Alison, as George's mother, you obviously see things from a very different perspective. I mean, how difficult is it to fund George and Ben through their racing?
Well, it's quite difficult, but so far we've managed to do it okay. But obviously it gets more expensive as time, when they move into single seaters, and we can do so much, but to go all the way, we wouldn't personally be able to finance that ourselves without some help somewhere, sponsorship and things.
And your involvement is not just about George as a driver. I mean, you also help with the running of things, don't you, in the past?
I have done. When George was 7, Benji was racing and Steve couldn't be in 2 places at once, so I used to take George just to learn the tracks and mechanic for him, and then when he was 8, sometimes I just used to race, be his mechanic, and so he could get time, when he was young, ready for when he did start competitive racing. So I enjoy all that, and I enjoy being with him, and I enjoy spending time with him, and as a family that's what we want to be part of our son's lives. And I've got a daughter who, when George was a baby, I used to take him in a pram to all the horse shows. And Cara, she's 27 now, but we used to travel all over the country. So I'd go off in one direction with her and George, and Steve would go off in another direction with Benji racing. And then Cara decided to give up riding when she'd won the Horse of the Year show at Wembley in the year 2000. And it was George was sort of time then to start doing a little bit. So later on, we decided to put the efforts into George now because we thought we could see something a bit special. I think so. He's won, he's done well, I think.
So in terms of moving forward, I mean, this is a very time-consuming sport, but is it something that you guys cope quite well with?
Yeah, it is time-consuming, but it's a family affair. It's everybody's like in a family. We're all doing it together. We all live at the same house. Benji's the importer for Intrepid, so we're on Intrepid Kart, so it's all tied in.
Well, we're on the brink of the beginning of a motorsport career for these guys. I mean, there are big names surrounding the paddock nowadays. Force India, Red Bull, McLaren have an involvement. I mean, how big a moment is that going to be if one of the Formula One teams turns around to George and says, yep, we're on board?
Yeah, well, that would be the ultimate goal, and that would be the really good. That's what every parent hopes for their son. I say if you ask every parent in the paddock, they would like their son to be a Formula One driver, but that is aim, if you like.
More footage of George Russell racing in the British Karting Championships coming over the next few weeks. Please like, comment, share and subscribe. We'll see you soon.